Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome to the after party. I'm Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. With me, as always, Brian Anthony Davis, Dave Schofield. If you're just tuning in, you watched the Steelers preview. Our little Brady Bunch tiles are all mixed up because these two goofballs try to race to get into the show so they don't have to be on the bottom square. But that's Dave today. So, hey, if you listen to the Steelers preview, now you're joining us for the after party. We appreciate you being a part of all of our shows and not just the regulars. This is something that we started. I kind of got the idea towards the end of the season because I really missed our summer shows. And for those that didn't listen last off season, our summer shows, we would do an either or segment at the end that would just go off the rails. And sometimes the show would be an hour and a half long. And really my superior in terms of my boss for podcasting side of things said, no show should be over an hour. And I was like, well, we're going to have to do 2 shows. Welcome to the after party. That's how it got started.
Woo!
Dave.
Hey.
Oh, so weak.
Hey.
There we go. All right, so let's get things started. We finished the Steelers preview talking about most disappointing Super Bowls, and that is depressing. Sticking with Super Bowl since Jeff Hartman has been alive. Sorry, Brian. We're going to focus on the 2 that they won, Super Bowl 40 and Super Bowl 43. Here's the question. Which was better? Super Bowl 40, one for the thumb, or Super Bowl 43? Big Ben to Tone. We're going to start with Dave this time. Dave, which was better?
What do you want? Do you want a good answer or do you want a Dave answer?
Well, I don't understand how you can give a Dave answer. Just give an answer. I mean, you can say why you picked which one, but we don't need to hear Go ahead.
43 was the better game, but 40 was the better.
What is
Super
your
Bowl
favorite? The question was, what's your favorite?
So that's what I'm saying.
Can you imagine dinner
at
at the Schofield house? What do you want for dinner, Dave? Well,
I do what I want for dinner. Okay,
we're talking about dinner tonight compared to the dinner tomorrow.
I was saying 40 was my favorite because I had never seen the Steelers win a Super Bowl. I didn't want that game to be close. I couldn't stand for it to be close. I wanted them to have a nice lead the whole game, and it made for a great experience for the first Super Bowl that I witnessed as a Steelers fan. If I'm going to rewatch a Super Bowl, I'd rather rewatch 43.
So which is your favorite? That's
40
the question.
Because of the whole experience.
All right. You got
That's
me
what
all
I'm trying to
say.
say.
Okay, so 40.
You don't listen. You want to be like,
no,
guess what?
I'm trying to listen. I'm trying to follow you. It's just it's a long and winding road. Brian, what's your favorite?
Well, I'm only allowed to pick between the 40 and the 43.
Well, answer it, and then you can go back to any that you were allowed for.
So I'm going to go ahead and say 43. And the only reason being is you almost lost that. And you had 2 of the greatest plays, not in Steeler history, but in Super Bowl and in history in that same game. You had a drive to end all drives, and you had 2 guys on the other team that any other team that's playing them, you're rooting for Kurt Warner, you're rooting for Larry Fitzgerald. You know, you have no problem rooting for those guys. So that was just a fantastic game. Everything was good about it. Heck, Springsteen was great in the halftime show of that game. Everything was good about that game. The James Harrison play is going to be my favorite of all time because when that happens, that is such a swing, and he almost didn't get in there. And if he doesn't get in there, we might not be talking about this game so fantastically. So I got to say that is one of the most epic Super Bowls of all time. And for me, that's the one of the 2 that we're talking about that I just adore.
You know, I understand what Dave was saying when he said 43 was the better game, but Super Bowl 40, I mean, was so that.
Come on, Jeff, just answer it.
I did. Super Bowl 40. that run, 6 seed, the way they got there, and then when they got there, it was. There were just these spot plays. That's what I remember most about Super Bowl 40. These little pop plays that pay popcorn, like Mike Tomlin says, the Willie Parker run, the scramble to the left. Ben stopped at the line of scrimmage, throws it deep to Hines Ward. Hines Ward's throw to Randall L. Ike Taylor actually caught a football in that game. People forget that. Like I still can't believe it, but Ike Taylor caught a football in that game. The offensive pass interference call that is still being talked about in Seattle today. And the fact that Seattle whines as much as they do kind of makes me feel like Bart Simpson, which is the immature Jeff and me. But you know what? Super Bowl 40 was absolutely magical. It ended the drought. I'll never forget going to the local magazine place where I would get magazines and just finding every single, like I got Sports Illustrated, I got the special championship edition.
yep.
I'll never forget the Sports Illustrated. They had an ad in it that showed every single year of the NFL, and it had the highlighted years that the Steelers won in this super long break. And then it said 2005, welcome back. And I was like, oh, that's freaking right. Yes, let's go. You know, Super Bowl 40, one for the thumb. I mean, everyone had talked about that so long, that Super Bowl 40. But I understand what you're saying, Dave. Super Bowl 43 was a freaking incredible. I got to say, that's one of the greatest. That's one of the greatest Super Bowls of all time.
You know
Hands
what?
down.
This is like
Well,
picking which one of your
there's some
kids you like
talk.
better.
You know that answer, Brian.
There's some talk in the live chat that goes right along with what I was thinking. And that is with Super Bowl 40. I know I'm just talking past you because I've learned if I don't, I'll never get a chance to say anything. So the thing with Super Bowl 40 is that was probably their worst game of the playoffs.
Yeah.
The 3 games
Oh,
leading
yeah,
up to
absolutely. That was the worst.
That was what was amazing.
Yeah.
So that whole playoff run just has so much behind it as well. But that Super Bowl 43, a lot of people don't understand. What if James Harrison would have been ruled down at the 1? What were the Steelers going to do? Were they going to take the 3 or were they going to go for the 7? Because there was a penalty on Arizona during the return, which would have put the ball half the distance to the goal wherever he was down, and they would have had an untimed down. So what would they have done in that instance? I don't know. I forgot. It was really close that he made it in.
That play, which I would agree is one of the best plays in Super Bowl history in terms of magnitude and everything that surrounded it. To me, though, that was a play, and the same as this Antonio Holmes catch where replay ruined it. Because in the moment, the play's called, bedlam happens, especially with Harrison's return, and then you got to wait. And then they're breaking it down frame by frame. And where does his helmet hit? And did Larry Fitzgerald do this? And da-da-da-da. And it just, you're sitting there and you're like, oh my gosh, this is taking forever. And Santonio Holmes, were his feet down? Did he have possession when his feet were down? And then did all this. I understand why replay is there, and we've talked about this before, but man, those are 2 golden examples of how replay can just kill what could be a really magical call, like a magical call, whether it's Bill Hillgrove or I think in Super Bowl 43, that would have been Al Michaels, correct, on NBC? Had that call? Yeah, he and Collinsworth. So go ahead, Brian, you have something to say?
You know what? You know who was thankful for replay? James Harrison.
Why?
That poor man was dead.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. he was dead, and I understand. You think about
I was
that,
worried about him.
You think about that. They had that drive.
I thought how he landed is what was so bad. I mean, he was exhausted from running, but I was seriously worried about the way he landed in the end zone on that play.
Yeah, that's incredible. So, okay, there's one. Who's the better Super Bowl MVP? Hines Ward or Santonio Holmes? This is just about game performance. This isn't about
just that Super Bowl game.
Yes, this isn't about character. It's not about longevity with the Steelers. This is just about that specific game. Hines Ward or Santonio Holmes? Brian, we'll go with you first.
First of all, Ben Roethlisberger, I thought should have been MVP.
He's doing it.
You took my answer.
However,
took my answer.
Something happened to Brian. Dave somehow is feeding him answers.
Yeah.
I still got to go Holmes just because of the gravity of it. Because you got to remember Hines in that second game, where I'm not talking about Hines in 40, but in 43, Hines was in a hyperbaric chamber all week. He was lucky to be playing because that knee was not in the best of shape. A lot of the times Hines, when he was out there, it's kind of a decoy. He caught balls.
He caught the ball on the first drive, I believe, which went down. They scored a touchdown, and it was like a 15-yard catch and run. My brother and I are like, yep, Hines is good. I don't think he came back on the field after that.
Who scored that touchdown, by the way?
The touchdown was, I want to say Najee Davenport, but I don't think that's right.
I'll give you the number.
What was it? Redmond, was it?
Nope.
You said 33?
Yep.
Dave, you know?
Redmond was not in that game.
Oh, Russell.
Gary Russell.
Yeah, Gary
University
Russell.
of
Gary
Minnesota.
Russell. Yeah.
I was thinking, I don't know why I was
Man,
thinking.
I forgot about that one.
Najee Davenport.
That would be a good jersey to see at the stadium, a Gary Russell.
Yeah.
Gary Russell.
What if you had a jersey that just said Dookie on the back for Dave, what are your thoughts on the MVP discussion there?
Brian took my answers. It'd be Ben Roethlisberger. No, it's the MVP of Super Bowl 43 because of how that game played out. Either choice they went with, which was Holmes, that was the more impressive performance. I still think the Super Bowl 40 game was really. I mean, he made some great plays. Hines Ward did. I mean, he was the obvious choice, but the overall play, especially on the offensive side of the ball, was just so much more in 43 than it was in 40.
I would be curious to see how many yards Antonio Holmes had prior to that last drive. I don't remember him being much of an impact player before that time. And you guys might know more than I do, but I just don't. I'm just like, I don't remember him being that guy that took over the game. And Hines Ward made plays throughout the game. Obviously, he had the big catch down, I think, the 2-yard line, which set up, that was Ben's end around scramble, wasn't it? Which was highly controversial in terms of whether the ball got over or not. We know it did.
Yeah, he was in.
But I agree. Santonio Holmes.
And he caught Hines caught the pass from
Randall, correct. Yeah. And that's why his yardage, he had a lot of yards in that game, and that's probably why he was MVP. Here's another one. Better play. Now, this is going to be, I think this is a slam dunk, but I just wanted to see if maybe there's a chance one of you bites on the first one. Fast Willie Parker's still Super Bowl record 75-yard run in Super Bowl 40, or Santonio Holmes' catch in Super Bowl 43. Some might say that although Santonio Holmes' catch was the game winner, that Fast Willie Parker's run was also the game winner that opened it up and kind of led the way. Is anyone taking Fast Willie Parker? Dave? Oh, here we go. We got to take her. Brian, you get it. Go. You're taking FWP.
So they open up that second half, and that play, I mean, I'll never forget Alan Faneca, Hall of Fame, hopefully. But Faneca pulls and opens that hole for him, and Willie's just gone, and he's flipping in the end zone, and you're like, it's over. Yeah. That was the play. I mean, still, he beat Marcus Allen on that play. Still the longest run in Super Bowl history, 75 yards. And I knew it as soon as it happened. I'm like, that's a record. And it has not been broken, but that was a backbreaker for Seattle. I know they tried to come back, but that was it. That was the play that made it all fine. You knew that this team was there and a team of destiny at that point. So Fast Willie Parker, that touchdown was so important. And I don't think it gets as much acclaim. You take that play like Santonio Holmes, as important as it was at that juncture, it was so important, but this really set the tone.
Okay, Dave, you agree or disagree?
I'm going to disagree, but I got to give Brian there's a lot of great things with that play. That play sealed the game for me because my father called that play right before kickoff of the second half. He's like, we just need a long Willie Parker touchdown run and end this game. And boom, there it was. As soon as my dad said that and then it happened, I'm like, this is destiny. This is going to happen. And that did win the game. But you have to go with the Santonio catch because not just because it won the game, because of the time left on the clock. What the clock was when that play occurred just makes that so much more of a play than the Willie Parker one.
Here's what's crazy. A couple episodes ago in the after party, I talked about a guy named Hal Smith. And he was the guy that played for the Pirates that hit this great home run in 1960, but no one remembers him. Think about this. The play before Roethlisberger connects with Santonio Holmes, he throws to Santonio on the left. So if Ben's looking at the end zone, he throws
almost
to the left
same
side.
Play, but the other side.
Easier catch goes right through his hands. Should have been a touchdown. Wouldn't have been considered one of the most difficult catches or anything like that. Would have had a lot more time left. It would have changed everything. I mean, at least would have probably had 8. Ben held that ball for a long time, to be honest with you. So you would probably had about 8 seconds left. And people also forget that after the Steelers scored and Santonio Holmes catches that pass in the end zone, the Cardinals made a couple plays and they start moving down the field. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, the defense is going to give up a score and we're going to lose or possibly lose. That play, I think it's Santonio Holmes just because of the magnitude of it and everything. But when you think about how things play out in sports, if Santonio Holmes doesn't catch that second pass, if they don't score and it ends up going to overtime and they end up losing, whatever, people are going to look back on that first throw on the left side of the end zone and think this guy's a bum. I mean, a lot of people thought he was a bum anyways, but they're going to look at him and say, boy, this guy really blew it. So it's just crazy how sports work out that way. Brian, I forgot to say, was there any Super Bowl while you were still alive that was not from 30 on that you would have ranked higher than one that we already talked about?
So one that I've watched the past couple of days is Super Bowl 13, and that's a phenomenal football game. I've been watching it for the articles that we're doing, the flashback articles, and I'm watching these games in full before I write, and actually while I write. So it's so awesome to go back and watch Super Bowl 9, which I never really watched in full. Never saw Super Bowl 10 in full. Super Bowl 13 is a fantastic game. Steelers won that game 35-31. Very interesting thing. It was Bradshaw's first, and I'm talking 1979, his first ever 300 plus passing game. That's ridiculous to me.
That's a good stat.
So, I mean, it took him that long. And something also interesting was when you're looking back at Super Bowl 9 and watching it, they're talking about how Fran Tarkenton was the leading passer in 1974. With barely 2,500 yards passing. Boy, have things changed. But that's a really cool game. That was a really, a lot of defense in that game. But all of those Super Bowls were really fantastic in a way. There wasn't a bad one in the bunch of those first four. But that third one, Super Bowl 13, to become the first the three Super Bowl winner, and just everything that they did on defense, and the receivers, Swan and Stallworth, were both fantastic in that game. You could have given the MVP to Stallworth very easily. He had 3 catches for 115 yards in the first half and got hurt in the second half. If he doesn't get hurt in the second half, imagine what happens. But they had 5 touchdowns in that game on offense. They were incredible, and that was at the height. There was a 14-2 team, and that was at the height of their power. I really think. Get a chance to go back and watch on YouTube, like I did, or McMillan and Wife. You could watch any game. You could watch a preseason game from 1978 if you want. It's a whole lot of fun to watch those old ones, but this is a great game. 13.
Very good. All right, so Brian, go ahead, Dave.
I was going to say, I wanted to go back to 43 for a second, and because Jeff, you were talking about it and how they started to move the ball. Who was the player who created the fumble, and who was the player that recovered the fumble?
Lamar Woodley. Lamar Woodley caused it, and Brett Kiesel recovered it.
Absolutely. That is correct.
Yes. And now, you're forgetting I watched that drive just 2 weeks ago with my dad. Afterwards.
Did that one kind of ruin it? Because I was afraid they were going to overturn that one and say it wasn't a fumble. But they didn't even look at it, did they?
According to Al Michaels on the broadcast, he says, I'm sure they're taking a look at that. And then all of a sudden, Ben snaps the ball and he kneels down and turns and hugs Troy Polamalu. And he says, and I guess
another moment where replay was like, okay, like I had that this past year with the Rams game when my brother and I were at that one. And when they called that a fumble that Fitzpatrick picked up and ran to the end zone, I didn't even cheer. I'm like, they're going to come back and call it a forward pass. I'm not even excited about it. And I'm like, I missed like the best touchdown of the game, even cheering for it because of replay. I just expected the replay to bring it back.
Could you imagine, just think to yourself, and I wasn't alive for this. I'm not sure if anyone was. Think if there's replay for the Immaculate Reception.
Yeah, we talked about that one time.
Yeah, I mean, think about what that would have been like. It would have been the highest of the highs and then nothing. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't have had the announcer saying, and Franco comes in riding on his white stallion, saving the day for Pittsburgh. You wouldn't have had any of that. It would have been, and let's go to review. Let's break this down by frame. Go ahead, Brian.
I was alive.
Thank you.
I have no recollection.
Right.
I was alive. I was
okay.
1.
It was 1. There you go. All right, Brian. So since you have the microphone in front of you right now, what's the etiquette for the Super Bowl? Just give us I want to know, because this article is going to come out this weekend. We always run it like Saturday before the Super Bowl. He does it every year, and it is Super Bowl etiquette, people. If you're going to do it right. So, Brian, I just want you to hand it. It's a lengthy article that is fun to read, but pick out the most important ones for people that are listening.
Okay, of course, I'm going to do this real quick. I touched on it last week. Don't be the one that just gets hung up on commercials and say, I'm just here for the commercials, because that's kind of, to me, that's kind of a slight to everything that the game's about. Healthy choices at the Super Bowl. Jeff, no tofurkey, Jeff. No, I mean, I want a 7-layer dip. All right. That's what I want. I want a 7-day, when the room clears, you're still smelling it. That's what the Super Bowl is all about. Uncoordinated food at Super Bowl parties. Don't just show up at your party, throw a bag of Tostitos down at the counter and say, hey, I'm here. No. And look, find out what other people are bringing. Don't bring the 4th batch of Little Smokies. That's not proper. And look, if you're coming up with some weird dip that Guy Fieri binged up on figured out on a 3-day Coke binge, don't do that either. That's just not something that you do. Think about what people want at a Super Bowl party. Just because you saw it in Good Housekeeping or Country Living or whatever doesn't mean that the people at the Super Bowl party want to consume that.
Can I stop you there for a second, Brian? But what if the Pioneer Woman says that it's going to make a great Super Bowl dish? I mean, that's a question. The Pioneer Woman. Okay, you don't know who the Pioneer Woman is?
No, I don't.
I got nothing for that.
Gosh, the Food Network. She's big now. Not literally big. She's just a big name now.
That's awesome.
Go ahead, Brian. I didn't mean to.
I have to admit, I don't think I've ever turned on Food Network before. Ever.
My kids love it. They watch all those shows.
This is one time, guys, when I'm watching the game. Don't complain about athletes getting paid too much on Super Bowl Sunday. I don't want to hear that. Because Super Bowl Sunday for a lot of people is amateur night. I knew somebody back in the 90s. She was a serial clubber, and she's like, man, I don't even go out on New Year's Eve anymore. I hate it because it's amateur night, and that's where the fights are. That's where you have the people that are just out because they have to be there. So for me, amateur night is the Super Bowl when people are doing these things. So don't complain that athletes are getting paid too much. Also, look, I don't want to hear about real life in the 3rd quarter. I'm sorry Uncle Stan lost his spleen. I'm sorry that your wife left you for the barista at Starbucks. Look, let's just not talk about it right now. We could talk about it later, but not during the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is sacred, Jeff, Dave. It's sacred.
I agree with you. I don't. Everything is. I agree with everything. I don't experience that. I do get if I'm around my father-in-law, he complains about players' money and stuff, and he thinks that the entire NFL is rigged and that it's nothing but a giant conspiracy and that they want this, that, and the other. To me, if a player hits the big time and gets millions of dollars, good for you, man. You have a skill set that I don't. You took advantage of it. Good for you. Dave, is there any other etiquette rules that you can think of that Brian might have left off? There are more than that in his article. I want people to know that, so make sure you check it out, behindthesteelcurtain.com. Go ahead, Dave. Anything?
I don't know about etiquette. How many of you have had to go to a Super Bowl party you did not want to go to, that you were forced to by a significant other?
Every year except for this one, because people are coming to my house.
See, but before my wife and I were married, she drugged me to a couple different places for Super Bowl parties, and the last one was one because remember, the only Super Bowl I'd ever seen the Steelers in was Super Bowl 30. So I had a favorite player at the time that was not on the Steelers, that their team was in the Super Bowl. And that was one Mike Allstott of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I that's the only jersey I've ever owned, NFL jersey, that was not a Pittsburgh Steeler. I had a Mike Allstott jersey. And I went to watch that game, and I had to go with my wife to friends. She was living with her sister at the time because it was before we were married, and it was friends of her sister. And I get there to watch the game, and I'm actually really excited to watch it because there's at least a player that I'm wanting to see in it. And nobody knows anything about football. They didn't understand punting on 4th down. They didn't understand any of that. And it was just absolutely brutal. And that's when I said, I'm not doing this again. And she understood. So that one was rough because I've learned don't go to a Super Bowl party with people that don't even know, that there's who the teams are going to be in the party or in the game, how football even begins to work, but they are doing a big Super Bowl party because that's what people do. I was filled there with people that were just there for the commercials. And I would say less than half the people were even in the room watching the game.
That's horrible.
It was brutal.
Yeah. Now, Brian, let me ask you this. Brian, so you said a lot about food and bringing food to the Super Bowl party. Is there any Super Bowl food that is acceptable no matter where you go? It doesn't have to be coordinated. If they walk in with it, you're like that. That's good. Thank you for bringing it. Is there anything that you can think of?
You bring a good homemade Chex Mix.
Okay.
I love it.
Seriously?
It's got to be homemade, though. It's got to be homemade, according to you.
Yeah,
Right?
a good homemade Chex Mix.
I did not see you going. I didn't see you going there. I really didn't. But hey, that's cool. What about you, Dave? Is there anything that you're like, hey?
Wes just said it. Wings. You can't go wrong with wings. If you're not sure, take wings.
No shrimp.
I have a good wing.
No shrimp and cocktail sauce.
Shrimp.
Oh, if you bring shrimp, somebody brought that to Super Bowl 43 at my house, and I was like, this is amazing. I mean, I was so glad. I mean, at halftime, we're eating shrimp. I'm still high off of Debo going to the end zone. Yeah, you can't if you bring shrimp, unless you're allergic like my sister. I can't bring it to her house. That's then there's EpiPens and it's a party. But shrimp's a good call. But wings, Dave, I'm with you. Wings are a good call.
I think that Super Bowl that I was just talking about, where it was the horrible party where no one knew anything about football. I don't have to worry about anyone ever hearing this because they didn't even care enough about football to listen to this podcast. But still, I think that was the last Super Bowl that I attended where I did not eat shrimp. Shrimp is the thing.
Thaddeus Kennedy says, I live in Maryland. So do we. He said, you bring crab cakes or crab dip? You bring crab cakes? I'm talking lump crab cakes to a Super Bowl party. Tell me where you are going so that I can be there. My gosh.
I'm going to give you my address, buddy.
Because this is legit. Like Thaddeus says he's in Maryland. Like, if you have legit crab cakes, I'm not talking about stuff that's frozen, legit hand patted. Yes is all I gotta say. And to the crab dip, same. So, all right, Dave, you had a couple topics you want to get to. What are those?
Oh, mine had nothing. Mine had nothing to do with football.
That's okay. We can pick your favorite one.
Well, I'm going to ask you guys this. Okay, this is just completely off the cuff. Is there something that people who are around you often know about you that maybe us three don't even know about each other, that you think isn't so much that you have to hide it, that you wouldn't feel comfortable sharing with our wonderful audience that's joined us for this after party? What's something about you that we might not even know, that we're just like, I didn't realize you were that kind of person?
My gosh, with Brian, this
do you want an example?
Well,
Jeff might know this now after I sent him a text last Sunday. Well, after I took a nasty spill on the ice here in Maryland, is that he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, he's like, I can't remember what you told me. And I said, well, that's what I get for wearing sandals. And that is, I just realized, you guys probably know this about me. I wear shorts and sandals year round.
Yeah. You're not the only person I met that's like that, but I didn't know that about you.
Yeah. It's very rare that people are seeing all the time. Today, taking my son to and from preschool, things like that. I'm always shorts and sandals. There has to be probably at least 3 or 4 inches of snow before I'm going to put on regular shoes. Now, Brian should know, I wore shorts to the game that we went to, even though it was pretty cold there, because that's just what I do.
But
now, I do
socks.
actually wear
high socks.
I did wear the high socks and the black and gold tennis shoes just because it completed the outfit. And I'm not going to walk that far and have to do all that in sandals. People are like, why do you wear shorts all the time when it's cold? I'm like, I don't care about cold. I care about comfort. I want to be able, plus I don't like socks. I don't like to wear socks. So I'm always wearing shorts and slides.
I would like to say that my comment to you when you said that you slipped and fell on the ice was clearly you weren't an ice hockey player growing up.
Oh, that's what you said. That's what you said. I remember. Yeah, there's one spot on my driveway. I forgot that the water rolls through, so the ice was thicker and it hadn't melted. And man, I wiped out on that Sunday. It was not fun.
Because I did play hockey growing up. I played in the summer. I played in the winter. I played all year round, whether it's roller hockey and leagues and stuff. So that was my first thought when you said I slipped and fell on the ice. It's like, well, you must not have played hockey. Brian, you seem like an open book. I mean, unless you're getting into 2 a.m. stories, I feel like is there anything we don't know about you?
I'm going to regret this.
Oh, boy. Are we going to regret this?
No. I'm afraid of cats.
Afraid of cats?
I'm afraid of cats.
I mean, how deep does this fear go? Like, if you go into a house with cats, are you not comfortable to sit down? You're not staying long? Like, what does this look like?
I'm fine. I'm just afraid to pet them. I just don't know what to do because I'm afraid they're going to scratch my eyes out. I had an interlude with a cat in 1993 in California named Rico. He was named after Richie Sambora, and he tried to kill me.
Interlude with the cat.
Well,
that sounds horrible.
I'm sorry. All I can think of is that scene from The Mummy where he walks in the room. He's like, "Hi," and he holds the cat up, and it scares him, and he goes flying out of the room. That's what we can do for bad now. I'm going to hold up the cat.
Oh my gosh! I had an interlude with the cat,
and I'm afraid of something else that I can't bring up on the air.
It must be bad because Brian
you just brought up on the air. You're gonna say I'm afraid of something else that I can't say on the air, but I'm gonna say that on the air so that everyone thinks, well, I wonder what it is.
Yeah, it's just it'll come off as insensitive. So I'm just there's some things that make me nervous. But the other thing that I was gonna mention is I'm a crier. Now at commercials, at movies.
Commercials?
If it's remember those long distance commercials back in the day? If they were on now, I'd be.
Oh, that's like the Dumb and Dumber scene where they're drying their eyes with the $100 bills as they're watching the. What was that? It wasn't. It's a company that's not even in business anymore. Anyways, I know what you're saying.
So yeah, like I get choked up really easy. You would not think. I mean, I'm sure I come off as sentimental, but I get really. Anything emotional in a movie, I start crying at the end of every movie.
So, like single tear? Are we talking sobbing? Like, do you need consoling? I'm just.
I get really choked up.
Okay, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
It's not full on, but I get really choked.
All right. I guess for me, I'm pretty much an open book. I mean, everyone knows I have 5 kids. 4 of them are girls. If you listened to the show last night, you know I drive a Prius. My wife drives a minivan. I guess you guys know this because we've talked about it before. I guess you'd have to go back to the fact that, believe it or not, I have a long history of music in my family, and that I was actually classically trained singer to the point where I was actually paid to go to England for 2 weeks and travel around with a professional choir and sing. And this is traditional church style music. And I love music. I've always loved music, taught myself how to play the guitar in early 2000s. And if you've listened to this after party, Brian and Dave and I have gone off about music. I love all kinds of music. One of the greatest debates ever was with we went Eagles versus Beatles, and then we went to which Beatle was the best to the Eagles. I love music. And so for me, that's probably, I guess, maybe the one thing that you guys didn't know, but I think you knew that anyways. So that's really it. Prove it.
No, you missed it. Javman got you again.
What do you say about lacrosse? That's more of a sport than lacrosse. People hate it that don't, people hate it because they can't play it. That's what I always say. But I mean, let's be honest. On this show in particular, I feel like the standard is a standard. Like Lance and I, there's little tidbits. People know a lot about us because of how much we open up on this show about our families and all this stuff. So there you go. That's a good one, Dave. Anything else you want to bring in? We got 10 minutes left.
Well, I mean, if you want to go to a different subject, mine was It was a TV show question because it was actually, I don't know if you guys know, this is something I say. I love game shows. I like I DVR Wheel of Fortune every night, and then thanks to Jeff, I watch it every morning while I'm on my exercise bike that
There
Jeff
you
has
go.
me making sure that I'm doing. So I like to do that. My kids have been begging me to try out for Wheel of Fortune for forever because of just being able to do the puzzles or whatnot. But I like other game shows. And there's another game show because Jeff is now, I mean, he's pretty hardcore. He's making me get on the bike twice a day. So I have to have another show that I watch. So there's another game show that I really like. Have you guys ever watched the game show America Says on the Game Show Network?
Yeah,
I've seen it, never watched
I had
it.
somebody introduce that to me. I watched it once. It was good.
I've honestly, I've seen pretty much every episode, unless I haven't caught up to it yet on the DVR. Hosted by one John Michael Montgomery. If you remember him, he was the one of the two announcers in the Pitch Perfect movies. He's been in a bunch of
really
other stuff
funny.
like that. Yeah, he's very funny. But I was watching that the other day, and there was a category, and I'm sitting there screaming at the TV, trying to get people to say this. The category was, and the way they work is they give you the first letter of each word, and there's 7 things. And you have 30 seconds, and you go around trying to answer it. And the category was TV shows that had a great final episode.
So MASH.
That was the number one because it was
Cheers.
a big M.
Cheers.
MASH. Cheers.
Was it great final episode? Because I would not put
Yes.
Seinfeld up there.
I would not either, and it was on there. I was like, that
Really?
last
Brian,
episode
what
was-
about you?
I
did not
like
like
the
it.
final episode because I like the way that they pulled it all together. They brought everybody back,
It all
and they
came
went
back
back
to the shirt.
final scene. Yeah, the
shirt,
button.
the button. Yeah,
But
it's kind of in
also
no
the
man's land.
the final credits, though,
George,
too, when
me
when
too.
he's
I watch Match Game.
when he's in the orange jumpsuit and he's on stage, like just like at the beginning, and he's doing his
Yeah.
final monologue, and they're throwing stuff at him.
No, that's
Oh, I
yeah.
love it.
Are there any other shows? Brian would.
Wes
know.
and one I was going to say, and Wes and James just said, Friends was a really
Yes.
good final episode.
I don't remember
Yes.
that one at all.
So you've got MASH, you've got Friends, you've got Cheers, you've got Seinfeld, you've got 3 more. Do you want to know what the letters are that starts with them? Like they do on, like they have on the game. So one was an E and it was short.
ER.
One was it was ER. Yep. One was a short T and a longer S. And then the last one was an L. Of what
Well,
starts of the.
It's
I'm
not The
surprised-
Simpsons because The Simpsons is still on, but that's a T no
Yeah.
longer S, but that's still on.
But you're getting there. It was a show I've never watched, but I know plenty about.
Hmm.
And I think the final episode that just faded to black.
Oh, The Sopranos.
It was The Sopranos.
Yeah, that ticked a lot of people off.
And Job
Man's
Man just
lost.
got the last one. That would be Lost.
Good for you, Job
So,
Man.
yeah.
Hey, here's a question.
I didn't
piggybacking
watch
off
that one to the end. So,
Going back your entire life, what's your favorite game show been?
game show.
Your favorite
Hmm.
one.
Mm.
So it could be still on. For instance, The Price is Right is still on. That could be it. Doesn't matter. I'll tell you what mine is. What you think, and that was. I'll give you a hint. See if you can tell me what the name of it is. No whammy, no whammy, no whammy. Stop.
Press your luck.
Press your luck.
Yes.
I would've said
Did
that.
you
luck.
bring that back
I
recently?
love.
when they
I
tried
don't
to do a
know,
new
but I used to
version?
love watching the blinks on the screen, and then the little whammy, wah 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 wah, would come out. It was the best. I love pressure. Oh, Thaddeus with Supermarket Sweep. They run reruns of that. I watched
Okay.
an episode. That's so great. Go ahead, Ryan.
I got to jump in with Supermarket Sweep.
You
My
were on
cousin
it.
was on.
Oh.
No, my cousin was on Supermarket Sweep. My other cousin was on Wheel of Fortune, which she won like a $96,000 vase. But the most famous, because they lived in California, but the most famous one was in the very first season. My cousin got beat up and was on the People's Court. And
Not a game show, but
she's
still.
a female. I mean, like,
This
and
is
she
not
was
a
on-
game show.
Yeah.
But
But
still,
they
that's-
pay you like a game show. Like the defendant got money to be on the show. She
So,
got
okay,
money to be
So,
in
what's
there.
your favorite game show, though, Brian? of all time?
$25,000 pyramid.
Got it. That was a good one. I used to like that one. What about you, Dave?
I'll probably have to stay. I would not have answered this the same way 2 years ago, but right now I've really got back into Wheel of Fortune, and that's a good one. And I like the old episodes of Match Game, as other people were saying, and I don't
Match
watch
Game.
them all, but but it's kind of hard to not enjoy Family Feud, no matter who the host was, whether it was Richard Dawson or back in the day or everyone. Those were pretty good.
Joker's Wild was good. Card Sharks was even better. Card Sharks was good.
Here's a newer one. It's not on the air anymore that I absolutely love. And it was Cash Cab. I used to love Cash Cab.
I always loved to get picked up by Cash Cab.
Everyone that went to New York, we're looking for a van. Like, do you know how many van taxi cabs that are in New York City? Good luck. I mean, unless you see the flashing lights in it. I mean, that was
my daughter looked for. She looked for those kind of. I mean, we didn't even ride in a taxi when we went to New York.
It's not on anymore. They just have it in syndication, I think.
I couldn't tell you.
Now I'll give you one that it was short lived. It was on VH1, hosted by host of Survivor Jeff Probst. Rock and Roll Jeopardy.
Yes,
and I wanted to get on that.
Dan Patrick did a Sports Jeopardy as well.
Okay.
Both of those would have been a lot of fun to be on.
I also really liked it. Was very short lived because it was bigger overseas. Was The Chase? If you'd ever watched that, the replays of that on Game Show Network with the Beast, they had to try to out trivia the Beast. He was just super impressive with all the stuff that he knew. And my daughter, her favorite of all time is Deal or No Deal. She still loves that one.
That is still a good show. I watched an episode of that the other day. It was a rerun, and I was like, man, when this was on, it was fun to watch. It was a good show.
Which of the three of us would you rather see on? Thaddeus brought it up. Taxi Cab Confessions.
Oh, good Lord. That's a slam dunk. That's Mr. BAD, because he would have the best stories. Although Dave might be just like brimming with these stories, and he's just not sharing. Dave's sordid history of incarceration and sleazy behavior. That I don't know. Maybe. I don't think so.
No, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. No, I don't think that. But you know what? You know how many times I've thought about when watching America Says that I'm like, well, they filmed this in California. I'm like, we could be the podcasters and go out and visit Lance Williams. That would be fun. Be the 4-man team. So,
well, I tell you what, guys, I have one more topic before we call it a show. All of us on this show are fathers, and we're all fathers of more than one kid. Not everyone to the extreme of my 5. Dave, you have 3, correct?
That is correct.
Brian has 2. So my wife.
No, technically, I have 3.
You're correct. Very good. Thank you for the correction.
With a stepson.
Exactly. So for me, I got a text from my wife the other day that one of her friends or someone she knows is expecting, and they went on a baby moon. And this is a new thing now where pregnant couples are having their first child go on like one last getaway. And this is via text. And so I said, just wait until the kid comes. And I sent a GIF, and it was of Brian and one of our favorite movies, Die Hard, where Bruce Willis is looking out the window going, "Welcome to the party, pal." And so it's kind of like, just wait until this kid shows up. What is the one thing you think of when people are expecting their first child and you have children and they're like, oh, we just can't wait. We just can't wait. And you're thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, you can wait. For me, I think that all the time. Is there anything in particular that you all think of other than Die Hard scenes that I send to my wife via? Brian, we'll start with you. Anything?
I just think of, all right, your philosophies that you're going to parent different and we're going to do it this way. No, that all goes out the window at 2 a.m. when the kid is crying. Everything, your Ferber method, all these different ways to parent, it just changes. You have all these intentions. They're going to stop, and primal parenting takes over.
That should be a book. Primal parenting.
There we go. The 3 of us.
Yes.
3 of us. We'll write this.
Primal parent. Dave, what about you?
It's interesting because I had 2 guys on my softball team, both become dads, one during the season and one as soon as the season ended last year. And there was so many different things. I always understand the excitement because I'm like, you're one day you're going to wake up and you're not a dad, and then the next day you're going to be a dad for the rest of your life, and really appreciate that. And I mean, moms too, same deal. Okay, but to me, my wife became a mother way before I became a dad, in my opinion, because she, carrying the child, to me, it was just she had that experience much longer than the rest of us. I'm sorry, that's just kind of how I feel about it. I celebrated her on Mother's Day when before our daughter was born, when she was expecting her. But someone tried to say, well, you should celebrate Father's Day. I said, nah. They're like, well, you did something important. I'm like, I was going to do that anyway, so it didn't matter. So, but just the whole idea of you're so excited, especially when that moment comes in, and you think and you're all amped up. I'm like, I would love to just go back to that moment and say, go to sleep, get some rest, because it's going to be forever until you actually have rest. Again.
Yes, and yes. Very good. I was really sad when we decided that we weren't having any more kids. I'll say that. We have 5. That's a ton. And I know there's people that have more, but with the moment that you realize, like, okay, we're done. Like, it's it. You're like, man, that's another page. It's another chapter that ends. That's kind of sad.
I looked at a baby just 2 weeks ago. Said to my wife was holding the baby. I'm like, I can reverse it. She's like, no, shut up. I mean, I would love to have another baby in the house.
Well, here's the thing with us, where because I was getting older, I didn't have my first child until I turned 30. So now Brian might have. I'm 35. Trying to figure out how old you would have been. Yeah. 35. Okay. So when we went and we had kids, and I had my daughter first, then 3 years later was my son, and then 2 years later we're like, oh well, we could have another one now. I'm like, well, let's give it about a 2-year window, and my third child came along like at the very last moment of that window, and because I'm like, I'm just going to be too old. I don't want to have to get out of the retirement home to go to high school graduation. That was just me. So there was one Saturday morning where my wife and I woke up and we didn't set an alarm. Why are we still? I can't believe we've slept in this long. It was like 9:30 or something like that. And I'm like, what's going on? And I get up and I go out and check, and both kids had gotten up and gone out on their own, and they weren't calling for mom and dad, and they sat down on the couch and they were watching Saturday morning cartoon. They don't do Saturday morning cartoons anymore. Not cool like we had. And sitting there, I'm like, this is the moment I've been waiting for as a parent. And then I look at my wife and I'm like, you were like 6 months pregnant. What are we thinking? We are starting this all over again. So I can't imagine, Jeff's like, oh, it's sad that it's over. I'm to a point where like, there's as much as the pure joy of the moment, you look back. For those of you that don't know, I know Jadman asked for it. I'm currently right now, I'm a stay-at-home dad. That's what I do along with stuff with the website. I was a teacher for 10 years. And now I'm on a leave of absence from teaching as a stay-at-home dad. And when you look at those moments with the kids, every single day just kind of seems like the same old. But when you look at it over the long term, it's just absolutely amazing being a parent.
I agree, 100%. It's fun. It's frustrating, but it's fun. Period. I'll put it that way. It's frustrating, but it's fun if I'm being real. So, all right, guys, good show. Appreciate all the talk. We started off with the Steelers, finished with random stuff. I love it. So make sure you join us next week for another episode of the Steelers preview, the after party. Make sure you check out Lance tomorrow night on the Yeah, I Said It. And this week it is Brian Anthony Davis for Steelers burning question. Yes. Yeah, because you guys switched.
Yes.
All right, so check that out. And are we having an NFL preview this weekend?
There will be an NFL preview, and we're possibly going to have somebody from the NFL experience alive on location. So cool. That's the plan right now. So we're working on a few of those things.
All right, so make sure you stay with us here on YouTube, BTSC Steelers Radio, and on all audio platforms. Check us out for another episode of the Steelers Preview, the After Party next week. Have a great weekend, everyone.